This is the sound of your ride home with Dad after he caught you vaping. Awkward, isn't it? Most vapes contain seriously addictive levels of nicotine and disappointment. Know the real cost of vapes. Brought to you by the FDA.
Money decisions don't have to be either or. With Bank of America, they can be yes and. Like yes to sunny vacations and rainy day funds. Can our digital tools and guidance help you create the future you want? Yes. And help you keep enjoying today too. Do more with a bank that asks, what would you like the power to do? Explore our tips and more at bankofamerica.com/yes and.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in places that could expose you to identity theft. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every second. If your identity is stolen, their US-based restoration specialists will fix it, guaranteed or your money back. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Welcome to My Weekly Mixtape, a podcast that takes the classic mixtape approach to building a modern playlist. I'm your host, Brian Colburn. Joining me once again to wrap up a year in music, and for the record, what a year it was, is DT Carel, host of Space Castle. DT, welcome back, my friend.
Dude, it is always a pleasure. I look forward to this every year now. Please invite me back every single year because it's like my favorite thing to do at the end of every year. It's awesome.
I think it's a tradition at this point, right?
I'm good with that, man. This is my Thanksgiving. This is my Christmas.
Well, there you go. I'm glad we're setting the bar low for that. I hope the rest of the holidays are good for you. But 2024 was a very eclectic and busy year in music overall. So what were you looking for in the songs you brought to the table this evening?
Oh, man. So I'm a huge pop fan. A lot of people don't know that about me. People who know me best know that about me. But this is just a phenomenal year for pop music. Like, so many great artists broke out this year. A few of them made my list. And it was also a great year for post-hardcore out of nowhere, which was amazing. Like ska punk and punk bands came out of nowhere and had like a revival. You know, the usual stable of like legendary hip hop artists put out some amazing music this year. This year, I just wanted to try and capture all of that and capture my favorites from every genre that just had a phenomenal 2024. And hopefully maybe introduce some people into some new stuff that they maybe haven't dived into up to this point.
Yeah, my list is kind of ridiculously insane. It's a mix of artists that are household names and other artists that people might have never heard of before. And I think that's going to be interesting to see. Well, I'll just say this from the bat. This is not going to be your typical 2024 playlist, at least from my picks. I have a feeling that what the mainstream publications are going to be publishing for their songs of 2024 and the My Weekly Mixtape Space Castle 2024 playlist are going to be two different animals tonight. I'm just going to go ahead and guess that. Based off last year and Playlist Wars the year before, I'm expecting this one to go off the rails quick.
Yeah, 100%. I can't wait.
Well, let's get down to business. As I mentioned at the top of the show, DT and I will be curating the ultimate 2024 mixtape, and we'll use the old cassette deck approach. DT, as my special guest, will begin side A with his first song choice, and then I'll add a song that I feel best follows up his choice. We'll then flip-flop choosing songs until we've mapped out 10 songs for side A. We'll then give our mixtape a proverbial flip, and we'll map out side B, only this time I'll kick things off with DT choosing second. Our overall goal for this episode is to craft the best 2024 mixtape possible through only 20 songs. At the end of the show, you can take our conversation to the next level by visiting the episode page at myweeklymixtape.com to give our final mixtape a listen via the embedded playlist. And if you like what you're hearing on this show, you can help me out by either telling a friend, leaving the show a 5-star review wherever you're tuning in, or becoming a Patreon mixtaper at patreon.com/myweeklymixtape. There you can find ad-free episodes of the show, gain early access to upcoming episodes, chime in on future topics, become a guest curator, and so much more. And a few of the Patreon mixtapers chimed in with songs they would use to kick things off tonight, and I want to give a shout out to a few of those. Brandon from Virginia chimed in with Bicycle Strange's The Fretless Guitar Jams, Volume 1. Sean Goff chimed in with Bring Me the Horizon's Utopia.
Yeah.
Chad Lamassa chimed in with Cursive's Impostering, saying that a band this deep in their career rarely releases a song that instantly becomes a third favorite song of their entire catalog. Mike Daly chimed in with Slash's Crossroads from his incredible Orgy of the Damned LP that featured Gary Clark Jr., saying his spin on this song is fantastic. And Chris Pazika chimed in with a pick that really does hit home for me because, you know, age and all. And that is Frank Turner's Never Mind the Back Problems.
Awesome pick.
Oh, it's a great tune. Once again, if you'd like to chime in for future My Weekly Mixtape episodes, come join the fellow mixtapers at patreon.com/My Weekly Mixtape.
Come to me.
Focus Features invites you to succumb to the darkness.
Nosferatu.
From director Robert Eggers comes a masterpiece of horror.
He is coming. This creature is a force more powerful than evil. It is death itself.
Nosferatu. Rated R. Under 17 nanometer without parent. Only in theaters Christmas Day. Special engagements in Dolby and IMAX.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/campaign to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
At Sierra, discover joyous deals on great gifts for everyone on your list. Like cozy slippers, ski gear, fishing poles, bikes, large kayaks, even larger canoes. Whew, which might lead to another discovery. Wrapping gifts is the only sport you need to stay fit this season. 'Tis the season to discover great gifts at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
And DT, with that said, I'm officially pressing the record button on our mixtape, and the floor is yours. What song are you kicking off our Ultimate 2024 playlist with?
It's got to be Good Luck Babe by Chappell Roan. Who had a bigger 2024 than Chappell Roan? Like, I've been a fan for quite a while now. I was a follower on her TikTok and, you know, watched all her videos on YouTube. And she was just quietly this sort of kick-ass, awesome pop star / drag queen who was just doing her thing and just doing amazing things. 2024 came along and she just exploded, you know, jumping onto the scene and touring with Olivia Rodrigo and Sabrina Carpenter and doing all these awesome things. And she's just taking the world by storm. And her album that released in 2023, The Rise and Fall of a Midwest Princess, was fantastic. And if I could, I would pick one of the tracks from that. But we're doing 2024, and it's got to be the single she released this year, which she also performed at the VMAs, and it was just an incredible performance. It's Good Luck Babe by Chappell Roan. It's just amazing. She is quickly becoming a mainstay in not only pop culture, but pop music too. I think she's phenomenal.
Couldn't agree more. I've heard a lot of it this year from my girls. The song reached number 4 on the US Billboard Hot 100, Canadian Hot 100, and Australia ARIA charts, number 2 on the UK singles chart, and number 5 on the Global 200. It also reached the coveted number 1 spot in Ireland and was a top 10 hit in 7 other countries. This song is breezy, synthy, and I even want to say it has a cross-pollination of like 80s new wave with modern indie pop.
100%, yeah.
This is considered by a lot of people to be her quote-unquote breakout song, but I don't know if it was as inescapable as Hot to Go, because maybe it's just the fact that my kids did the HOTTOGO over and over again.
Yeah.
For the better part of the year.
Yeah, that was definitely her breakout track, but I think she's already growing and evolving as an artist, and I think Good Luck Babe is a huge evolution just from the rise and fall of a Midwest Prince. I just can't wait to see what she does in the future, because this song blew me away in comparison to music from her I already previously loved.
Well, I think to follow that up, I am actually going to go with another breakout star in 2024, because I think a lot of people are looking forward to see what Chappell Roan brings to 2025. And this is an artist that I really am looking forward to see what he brings to 2025 and beyond. And I'm going to stay in that pop range, and I'm going to cheat a little bit.
Who's going to stop you, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, I make the rules up as I go along anyway, but this song was released on his 2023 album, I Tried Everything in Therapy Part 1. However, in 2024, he released I've Tried Everything in Therapy Part 1.5. So there's my loophole to pull a song from this album. I'm going with Teddy Swims. Now, obviously, when I say his name, a lot of people are going to gravitate to his second single and Billboard #1 smash hit, Lose Control, which did come out in 2023, right, as well as The Door, which reached number 24 on the Billboard US Hot 100. But I'm actually going to go with an album track that, to this day, I am shocked was not released as a single, because I think it's the strongest song on the album. And it's everything I love about Teddy Swims in a song, and it's the track Goodbye's Been Good to You. This is definitely one of the how the hell is this an album-only track moments of 2024 for me. The song oozes with swagger. It's funky. It's swampy. And his voice's gravel sits over the song with a Joe Cocker-esque confidence that you don't hear in pop music nowadays. And early in 2025, I've Tried Everything But Therapy Part 2 is coming our way, and I can already tell you there's probably a good chance a year from now you and I are going to be talking about another song from that one, because I think Teddy Swims is just going to be one of those people that, like Chappell Roan, is going to continue to explode.
I completely agree. The production value on that track is incredible. It is so rich and so warm. I just want to envelop myself in it. It's just so cozy, and at the same time, like, exciting and hip and cool. And like you said, like, he's just got such a swagger to him, and it's just a fun track. I love the choice. And even though we're like neck and neck as far as like breakup and bad relationship songs, all of a sudden, like right out of the gate, the one you picked is so warm and so cozy and just so simultaneously like introspective, but also uplifting at the same time. It's a wonderful track. I love it.
I think I've played that track more than maybe any other track this year. It was sitting second in my playlist, with the first track being something I am probably going to talk about a little later in the evening. But this one, every time that song opens and he starts with the vocals and the hand claps are going behind him, like, you are just like, the groove hits you immediately and you're all the way in. But I'll be curious. We've got pop and we've got this swampy pop. Where do we go from here?
Well, there's this guy who was born and raised in Detroit, and he's sort of this underground musician. I don't know if you've heard of him. His name is Jack White. He wrote this song way back in the 2000s called Seven Nation Army, and it was a minor hit, whatever. Anyway, he did a bunch of stuff. He's done a bunch of albums since. He comes back in 2024, and he just all of a sudden releases this album online for free and encourages people to pirate it and burn it to CDs and sort of distribute it and do whatever they want with it. And then all of a sudden he starts doing secret shows across the country where he's only announcing them like the day before, and tickets are selling out like crazy. The man is creating an absolute stir. But he put this album out entirely for free. It's called No Name because he just listed it out as like track 1, track 2, track 3, threw it out there as MP3s. It is a full return to not only his roots as a musician in the White Stripes, but even going back further than that to his days in like the Upholsterers. This album is just no nonsense, dirty, grungy, garage rock, where it just sounds like he just recorded every instrument himself in his basement, and it is wonderful. And he put out this track called Bombing Out, and it's like the third track on the album. And I just love this track. It feels like you're listening to it from 50 yards away because it's so distorted and so removed. And I love the feel because I love the White Stripes. I love the Raconteurs, but I really love the Upholsterers, which was a band he was in like way back in the 90s before anybody knew who he was. And the track is just so much fun. It was hard to pick a track off the album because everything is just 100% why I've loved Jack White for 20 plus years now. And it's just crunchy, and it's just him going off and having a blast and just writing whatever the F he wants to write. And I'm along for the ride because I love Jack White, but I haven't loved his like last 2 solo albums as much as I wanted to. And this one just makes up for it like 1,000 times over. So it's Jack White bombing out off of No Name.
Love it. As far as I'm concerned, this immediately jumped to Jack's strongest solo outing to date. I think over everything he's done. And it might be, and I'm going to catch some flack for this, it might be neck and neck with even some of the White Stripes albums. This album is raw, garage, blues, punk, experimental that we all came to love a quarter a century ago from Jack. And I feel like this is his return to flexing his musical muscles, because I don't know if I was such a big fan of 2022's Entering Heaven Alive. It was a little too experimental for me.
He was like rapping and it just didn't really work. Like it didn't feel right. Lazaretto was a little bit more like mainstream Jack White, but still just didn't quite feel right either. And this is just him stripped down. And I think that's where he belongs. It's just clean, like no layers, just him raw, doing whatever he wants to do.
And along with the MP3s that you talked about, I got to give him some props with the most creative release strategy of the year, because at several third man record stores around the country and around the world, I think 1 in London and 2 in the US, he actually just started putting unmarked vinyl copies of the album in with other sales and just giving it away in the store before the digital release in July and the physical release in August. So creative, testing new ways to get the music out there in a world where people kind of they have expectations now with the way they get their music because of streaming. And I feel like this is Jack's way of both flipping his nose at that, as well as doing something that might pave the way for new albums in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a different way of engaging with the audience and getting them invested and getting them excited about something, instead of just waiting for it to drop at midnight on Spotify.
Yeah.
Which in and of itself is fully cool and exciting and whatnot. But like you said, an entirely different strategy of releasing an album and just doing it randomly. Like, hey, here's a brand new Jack White album. It's out there. Rip it. Share it with all your friends. Do whatever you want with it. That's incredible and selfless and genius.
And along with exciting release strategies, I'm going to tap into that for my next pick.
Yeah.
Because I feel like Pearl Jam knocked it out of the park this year with Dark Matter. I feel like the way Jack returned to form on No Name, Pearl Jam did on Dark Matter, and their release strategy was to put the album out in theaters and play the album twice through. Once in a completely darkened theater, where you're sitting with a bunch of peers listening to this album in complete darkness. Dark Matter. And then after that, playing the album a second time with a visual element added on screen. So I feel like that was a very creative way to build up hype around the album. But at the end of the day, Wreckage from that album is the best Pearl Jam song that the band has released, maybe since Better Man or Given a Fly, for me at least, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, like the last 20 years at least. It is a wonderful track. It's great.
There's something that's timeless about it. And Eddie Vedder has said that the song has both political and relationship undertones. And with Eddie Vedder, that's two things he sings about quite often. So you could kind of take where you want to sit with the lyrics and take it wherever you want to go. And I hear both of those at play. But to me, Dark Matter is so aligned with Pearl Jam's earlier catalog, a lot more than Gigaton, which came out in 2020. This album as a whole is easily in my top 10 for 2024, but when I listen to it from a song-by-song basis, it doesn't get any stronger than Wreckage for me.
Yeah, it's a beautiful track. And Eddie Vedder, as he gets older, has this sort of inherent sadness in his voice now, which just lends itself to the track, lends itself to the album as well. And I've always been a huge fan of Eddie Vedder. Everything from his incredible vocals and lyrics to climbing up 30-foot scaffoldings and jumping off and just being an absolute wild man. But as he's growing older and settling down, like his lyrics have reached a whole different level of introspectiveness. And like I said, his voice has just got this natural sadness to it now, which just tugs at your heartstrings, just adds this whole other level to what he's saying in his songs. Wonderful track. I love the pick. Awesome choice.
All right. We've got 2 pop songs followed by 2 rock songs. Where do we go from here for track 5?
we're going to go back to pop and we're going to keep it a little bit sad, which is weird because the artist I'm picking next is Sabrina Carpenter, and everybody's in love with her and everybody's over the moon with her. Another massive breakout like artist in 2024. Everybody's been all about like Espresso and all the other like hit singles off of her Short and Sweet album. But I think that Lie to Girls is quietly the best song on the album and one of my favorite releases of 2024. Honestly, the song is introspective. It's melancholy. Much of the song just uses like distortion and ambient studio sounds and plucking guitars and all kinds of like feedback and synths to just help paint this tapestry of a song that's about heartache, and it's about a relationship that's like dysfunctional at best and probably abusive at worst. And she does it in such a way that it's still poppy and it's still like a bop to listen to, but you're listening to lyrics and it's like, Sabrina, you all right? You've been through some stuff. It's a really bare bones, honest song, which she threw in there with the likes of Espresso and all these songs about just being a girl out in the world and having fun and like, you know, playing all these boys for fools and whatnot. And then she turns around and this song is about how you don't have to lie to girls because if they like you, they'll just lie to themselves and they'll just bury themselves in pretending it's a good relationship, despite the fact that it's one that might potentially be full of regret and fear and sadness and maybe even a little bit of violence. I don't know, but it is a wonderful, shocking, beautiful song. And it had to go on the list, not only because Sabrina Carpenter is just one of those huge breakout stars of 2024, but because this album has been such a massive hit. And I think everybody is overlooking this track, which I think is the best one on that album.
Well, having two kids that were obsessed with Girl Meets World during its 2014 to 2017 run, I've been familiar with Sabrina's music for years, and it certainly matured over the time, because in the beginning it was very bubblegummy when she was putting out songs that came out during that Girl Meets World run. But the music has matured over the time, and let's be honest, Jack Antonoff, which wrote and produced the song with Sabrina Carpenter and Amy Allen, has his finger on the pulse of what's going to hit stratospheric heights musically. Yeah. And he's proven that time and time again with Taylor Swift. And I think he's doing so once again here with Sabrina Carpenter. And while this isn't a single as of this recording that we're doing tonight, I'd honestly be surprised if it doesn't get released during this album cycle, because it's certainly being performed in her live shows. So it's already getting a ton of exposure. And I think because of that, they might be earmarking it for like an early 25 release. So you might be ahead of the curve with this one, picking it for a 2024 playlist, where next year you might be like, damn it, now I can't use that because it was one of the biggest bops of 25.
Don't I always like have my finger on the pulse? Aren't I always ahead of the curve? I like JPEG Mafia before he was cool. Come on.
There you go. Well, what I'm going to do is follow up this song with an artist that I have my finger on the pulse of. And it's somebody that I think is starting to explode. Hasn't gotten to the Sabrina Carpenter, Chappell Roan level yet. But she's also coming from the rock perspective. And I think it's harder to get to that level when you're coming from the rock world. Sure. Because for every pop artist like a Shania Twain or a Madonna in the 90s, Alanis Morissette took a lot to cut through the cracks in the beginning. And then it exploded and you got the Veruca Salts and the other rock artists, the female rock artists of the 90s. In 2020, J.J. Wilde released an album, Ruthless, that won Rock Album of the Year at the 2021 Juno Awards. And the reason I brought up Alanis Morissette before was J.J. Wilde was the first woman to win that award, going back to Alanis's 1996 win.
Wow.
So needless to say, the expectations were high for this year's album of hers, Vices. And I think she did a similar to the rollouts we talked about with Jack White and Pearl Jam, a unique way to release the album. She first started with a single, then did an EP in the summer, which was 4 or 5 of the tracks, and then released the full album in the fall. The song I'm going to go with is the lead single, Arizona. It is swampy and breezy, and her vocals soar over this chorus. Musically, I think it fits with the Jack Antonoff style production of Lie to Girls. but it definitely adds a little bit more of the rock vibe. Her voice definitely is a little bit more rock-esque in comparison to Sabrina Carpenter. But even though it might be a deep cut here in the US, I really feel like she's on the brink of breaking in 2025. And I hope that next year, when people are talking about Vices all year long, hopefully we can point back and be like, we were talking about her for 2024. Like, come on, get with it here. Because I love this song, and it's been on my playlist all year long. It's just such a vibe, such a vibe.
It's 100% a vibe. I think she's got an incredible voice. JJ Wilde, I think you're completely right about being a breakout star, and she's going to be in 2025. She's going to be huge. So everybody get ready for it. But that song, Arizona, it's just got such a wonderful texture to it. I grew up in Arizona. I'm born and raised in Phoenix. And the story she tells of going out to the Southwest and just trying to like lose yourself and just basically like escape things. She captures that vibe of the Southwest perfectly, about those long stretches of highway and the wilderness that most people don't know about in Arizona. Like only like 30% of the state is actually desert. The rest is all like conifer forests, and it snows and it's beautiful and it's wonderful. And Arizona is a place where you can go and lose yourself and rediscover yourself at the same time. And I think when you listen to this song with your eyes closed, it makes me feel like I'm back home, honestly. Like she's just got this incredible way of telling a story with her music and her vocals. And she's a dynamo. She's going to be huge. I love the pick. Awesome, awesome pick.
Well, what are we going to follow that up with for track 7?
So here's a band that's been around for 30 years now that should be famous, like JJ Wilde is about to be. And they're famous in their own right, but I've always felt like they should have been one of the biggest bands in the world, and they just inexplicably haven't been. It's Hot Water Music.
Yes!
And I love Hot Water Music so much. Like, I was first introduced to them as a kid going out to local shows where all the musicians I knew had Hot Water Music tattoos. Like, they say that like Sparks is your favorite musician's favorite musician. That's what Hot Water Music was to me. Like, all my favorite musicians' favorite band was Hot Water Music. And like I said, they've been around for 30 years now. This is their 30th anniversary. And they just put out their 10th studio album, Vows. And the track that I'm going to pick and throw on this list is called Burn Forever. I think it's a standout track on the album. It's an evolution of their music, but also has the same sort of like leitmotifs that aren't predictable as far as Hot Water Music, but are familiar of their discography. It's a great track. One thing that's different about Hot Water Music with this album is just the fact that Chuck Ragan's gravelly voice, you can tell he's getting older and he's probably like blowing out his vocal cords a little bit. So he's been strained, and it gets more strained as the years goes by. So he and Chris Waller have been splitting the vocals, and Waller takes the lead on this. And I don't think the music like suffers anything or loses anything with that splitting of the lead vocals. I think Chris Waller is a fantastic guitar player and a singer, and I think he just knocks it out of the park. And the band describes this song as being dark but positive, and being introspective and understanding why you're feeling what it is you're feeling, and staying motivated, working towards that goal, getting through all the BS that you're dealing with, and just trying to reach that light at the end of the tunnel, which is largely what their music has always been about for the last 30 years. They've always been incredibly inspirational to me. They still are. I think Burn Forever is just a wonderful track on a wonderful 10th album on the 30th anniversary of this incredible band that more people need to know about and have as one of their favorite bands.
Easily scooped me on the band and the album. There had to be something. So this actually makes my life easier. I mean, this album had guest spots from City and Color, The Interrupters, Thrice, Calling Hours. I'm going to say this, though. I personally think Chuck Ragan's vocals are just as perfect as they were on Caution 22 years ago, because the gravelly nature of it just sits with the introspective part of the music, and it gives you that. I don't want to compare it to country music because that's wrong, even though Chuck does dabble in some country-esque stuff, but like the end of the line for Johnny Cash, where his voice was just like,
I was going to say Johnny Cash
sits in the music so well.
Or even Tom Waits, even.
Yeah. I mean, Hot Water Music are one of those bands where album after album, I scratch my head in disbelief as to why they're not one of the biggest punk bands on the planet. In the last 12 years, they've released 4 albums that I friggin' love. 2012's Exister, 2017's Light It Up, 2022's Feel the Void, and now 2024's Vows. I'd be hard pressed to find one song that I don't thoroughly love on any of these albums. However, I had 3 songs sitting in my bank, and just to show where we differ a little bit, I had After the Impossible, Remnants, and Much Love because of the Interrupters collaboration. I couldn't not include that. But you could pick any song off this album, and I'm all in. So Burn Forever is an absolute soaring monster, and I love where you went with it.
Thanks, man.
Oh, all right. I'm going to go somewhere next.
I'm going to go with you.
And God, again, with these releases that are shocking people and doing something a little different and kind of out of the blue. September 5th, 2004, this band did a just out of nowhere live stream after a strange countdown clock on social media led to nothing but the clock hitting 0 and then starting to count back up again from 0. We're going to go with Linkin Park. And I'm going to go with the first song that they debuted with Emily Armstrong on vocals. And that is Emily Armstrong of the amazing Dead Sarah, who you and I have talked about on this show and on Playlist Wars. And I think The Emptiness Machine was the perfect way to introduce her.
I agree.
When I think of Linkin Park's last studio album prior to this, One More Light, there was definitely more of a pop influence. And while that is still a part of the sound on From Zero, I think Emily has brought back some heft to the band's sound that maybe harkens back to the Hybrid Theory Meteora era. And for me personally, I'm all in. However, I completely respect that there are going to be some fans of Dead Sarah that might be concerned about this because of their band status. But in Linkin Park synergy, I think back to when Chester was balancing his role in Linkin Park as well as Stone Temple Pilots. So personally, as a fan of Dead Sarah and Linkin Park, I'm going into this era of the band with some optimism of great music from hopefully both bands. I don't expect her to replace Chester. She never will replace Chester. I think bringing a female element to this band is an interesting approach. So I'm going to be curious to see how it unfolds, both in terms of the album's chart impact as we move into 2025, as well as their ability to continue to sell out concerts with this lineup. So far, they're selling out in minutes all over the world, so they're doing something right. And given what I've seen done in Alice in Chains with William Duvall in the impossible position of being the quote-unquote new Lane Staley, I don't envy Emily at all right now. And
no.
I'm sure she's got to get past that whole it's the new Chester role. But I mean, when an artist dies, like in Alice in Chains, like Bon Scott in AC/DC, and then you have Brian Johnson coming in and replay, you need a voice that's strong, but also fits. And I think Emily does that with Linkin Park. And I really feel like The Emptiness Machine was a great way to introduce her and show love and respect to the band's sound over the years. So I hope that this lineup works because I love Linkin Park. I love Dead Sarah. And I'm hoping that more people now go, who is this? Oh, she's been in a band? And Dead Sarah's music gets more attention from this massive, massive spotlight on her.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Dead Sarah. I have been for a number of years. And I'm really happy for Emily. And I completely agree with you that there's no replacing Chester Bennington. He was such a unique person and such a unique voice in the genre of, I guess you can call it alternative. I don't want to call it rap rock. I feel like that's reductive of what they did as a band. But if you're going to try and, in simplest terms, replace Chester Bennington, I can't think of a better person who is a fit for their style of music than Emily Armstrong. That woman's just got a voice and lungs on her. And when I first heard the track, I was skeptical like everybody else. But knowing Emily Armstrong's style of vocals and knowing Dead Sarah as well as I do, was like, okay, this is actually going to be probably something really special. And sure enough, like you said, it pays homage and it pays respect. And it's not like they're trying to replace Chester Bennington. And I think there's just enough of Emily Armstrong's own flair and style in there where It's a familiar continuation of what happened and the aftermath of, the tragedy of what happened with Chester Bennington. But it also feels different and fresh in a way that I wasn't expecting to, which I actually really like. This is a track that I had my time and place with Linkin Park way back in the day, and I actually haven't really touched them since Chester Bennington died. So coming back to this, it felt familiar, but also new and exciting at the same time. I've actually had this track in my rotation now, and I actually really love it. And I think Emily Armstrong was an inspired choice. I think the way she plays off of Mike Shinoda's vocals is very reminiscent without being disrespectful of the dynamic that Shinoda and Bennington had together. I think it was a brilliant choice. I am excited to see what the band does going forward. And I think this has to be on the best of 2024 songs just because of the impact it had and how meaningful it is to everybody involved. So I love the pick. I love the song. Awesome choice.
All right, we each have one song left for side A, track 9. Where do we go from Linkin Park?
I'm just going to go totally left field. I'm just going to go weird. I'm sorry. I'm going to go fully weird. I already mentioned
Weird
the
Al?
man once before. No, I mean, dude, he put some stuff out this year that's actually really fun. I thought about it, but I mentioned JPEG Mafia once before already this episode, and he put out another album called I Lay Down My Life. And every time that man releases an album, I stop what I'm doing, I put it down, and I put my headphones on, and I just go to the places he wants to take me, because he is still continues to be one of the most interesting and exciting producers and rappers in hip hop today. And this album is no different from the rest of his discography. It's just incredible. The track I'm picking is Don't Rely on Other Men. And it's an awesome track because he's just got this way of sampling weird and bizarre stuff. He'll do Japanese Famicom commercials from the 80s and turn it into this incredible song. And the motif of this track is a line spoken by Logan Roy in succession as played by the legendary Brian Cox. And it's just him repeating this line over and over again. And that becomes the impetus for this song that just takes you to all these wild places. And it kicks in about 2/3 of the way with some incredible guitar riffs from Alex Goldblatt. And it just makes the track. Every time Peggy releases something new, it's wild and crazy and weird and exciting. And I want to share it with everybody who will listen to me and take the chance on listening to this weird experimental hip hop, because Peggy, every time he releases something, it's the best stuff of that year. It's crazy. The man is just unstoppable.
Oh yeah, this album as a whole reached number 102 on the US Billboard Hot 100. For an independent artist.
For an experimental artist, yeah.
Yeah, and it reached number 15 on the US independent album charts. Is this track hip hop? Is it rap rock? Is it new metal? Is it experimental? There's so many elements that you could argue for this song. Last year, I'm going to do a little spoiler here. You had Perfect, which featured Danny Brown on your list, and that had this 70s meets modern hip hop backdrop. And now you've got Don't Rely on Other Men that, like you said, includes that line from Succession, along with a door slamming that he loops as the bass beat in this song. It's wildly unique. And maybe I'm old, but as far as I'm concerned, in my mid-40s, it's way ahead of its time, because I don't hear a ton of music that fits into this box. But I feel like if there was more of it, this would become what mainstream hip hop is. When I compare it to some of the mumble rap out there that I'm not the biggest fan of, this to me has such artistic integrity and such a authority to the delivery in it that I would love to see more artists going down this road.
Yeah, authority is a really good way of putting it. He just does whatever the heck he wants to do. And he does it with such panache and confidence that he just takes you along for the ride. Most of the stuff he does on paper should not work, but he is such a creative and confident producer that it's just fire every single time.
All right. To close out side A, I'm going to go with my favorite musical story of 2024. The song, because of this story, has become one of my favorites and one of my family's favorites. This summer, before I went through a medical emergency, I got to take my family to see Sum 41, The Interrupters, and opening act Joey Valence and Bray. And Joey Valence and Bray is what I'm going to close the side with. These guys are a 90s hip hop throwback, incorporating elements of the Beastie Boys, Cypress Hill, House of Pain, and so many other artists of that boom bap nature. But there's a punk spirit along with the delivery. But the reason I'm choosing this group is because of this following story. My daughter of my wife, my oldest daughter of my wife, said, we're going to go grab some French fries and a drink because we're there in ponchos because it's about 45 degrees and it's drizzling just enough where it's kind of uncomfortable for the kids. Like, I told them wear hats in and I gave everybody beanies and they all looked at me like I was, oh, come on, Dad. But as soon as we got in, they were like, crap, we're cold. Could we buy hoodies? So that backfired on me immediately. But anyway, we're up there watching the show and my daughter goes, I'm going to go grab something. I'll be right back. And her and my wife leave. And for some reason, at the point when they left, the entire rest of the crowd just happened to show up. So my daughter's calling me saying, do me a favor, put your hand up in the air so I could find you. So I raise my hand in the air and Joey Valance and Bray start the song, The Baddest. Hands up, hands up, hands up, hands up. Okay, let's go. I'm the baddest bitch in this club. So as she's saying to raise my hand, 2,000 people have their hands up in the air.
Oh, it's comedic timing at its finest. It's
wonderful.
wonderful.
Just glorious. So she starts texting me at that point because the song's playing.
She's like, put your hands down so I can find you.
So they're rapping the verse and she's like, okay, put your hands up in the air again so I can find you. And sure as shit, I put my hands up in the air. It gets right back to the chorus. So this happens. And by the time they get to us, it's towards the end of the song. Now, this whole time, I've got them a little nervous because they're trying to make their way through the crowd. It's an outdoor show. And I've got my 11-year-old next to me, but I've got my arm around her, but I'm not looking at her. And they get there and it's the last chorus. Hands up, hands up. So I look down at my 11-year-old, hands up. Hands up. Okay, let's go. I'm the baddest bitch in this club. And I'm like, what? So to close out side A, every time this song comes on, she goes, Mom, am I allowed to sing it this time?
Right.
I got to go with The Baddest from Joey Valance and Bray, my favorite concert moment of the year. It's a memory I'm going to live with for decades. I'm always going to remember my youngest at 11 years old yelling, I'm the baddest bitch in this club.
That's so awesome. I love the pick. Yeah, they're such a fun group, and it's almost like self-aware parody at times. It's just so much fun, and they know how absurd and silly they are, but at the same time, it's like a loving throwback to, like you said, the days of 90s hip-hop. Like, it just works. It is such a great pick. It's such a great track. I would be fine if you wanted to end the entire playlist side B with this track, because it's just such a great, like, stamp on what was this year of music. Just such a great pick. So much fun. That's a track I'll throw on when it's time to clean the house because I just need to pick me up. It's just so much damn fun. And like the video is hysterical too. Like it's awesome.
All their videos have the throwback look to them. I mean, all the way back from Punk Tactics when they ended up on Ellen, like they were viral because of their TikTok nature as well. And I think we're going to talk about that more tonight, but artists like Chappell Roan and Joey Valance and Bray are making names for themselves through TikTok. And these guys are doing it in a throwback way that to the audience they're actually going after, which is the Interrupters crowd and Sum 41's crowd, which is a mixture of people our age and younger. It's new, even though it's a throwback to us.
Yeah.
So that Mixtapers concludes side A of our Ultimate 2024 mixtape, which consists of Chappell Roan's Good Luck Babe, Teddy Swim's Goodbye's Been Good to You, Jack White's Bombing Out, Pearl Jam's Wreckage, Sabrina Carpenter's Lie to Girls, J.J. Wilde's Arizona, Hot Water Music's Burn Forever, Linkin Park's The Emptiness Machine, JPEG Mafia featuring Freaky and Alex Goldblatt's Don't Rely on Other Men, and Joey Valance and Bray's The Baddest. Head over to myweeklymixtape.com to hear all the songs we've discussed in this mix through the playlist embedded on the episode page.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. The holidays are here, and you know what that means. It's time to get your friends and family the gifts they deserve. Take the stress out of shopping with Amazon's great deals and low prices on a huge range of items from toys to tech and much more. Whoever you're gifting for, Amazon has great prices on everything you need this holiday season. Shop last-minute deals now.
We know you have a lot on your holiday to-do list. And at the UPS Store, we're here to help. With our pack and ship guarantee, your gifts will arrive intact or you'll be reimbursed. Got holiday cards to print? We're also the premier printing store. We've got everything you need for every way you holiday. Visit the upsstore.com/guarantee for full details. Most locations are independently owned. Product services, prices, and hours of operation may vary. See Center for details. The UPS Store. Be unstoppable. Come into your local store today.
Critics are celebrating Presumed Innocent,
Can you take me through that night again?
with Variety calling it brilliant.
I betrayed my family, but I would never have hurt her.
It's a sad day when a public servant is accused of such a heinous crime.
Entertainment Weekly praises the impeccable ensemble.
Did he kill his mistress?
It's a question everyone's asking.
And Pace calls Jake Gyllenhaal brilliant.
I did not kill her.
From executive producers David E. Kelly and J.J. Abrams, Presumed Innocent, now streaming on Apple TV+.
And now I get to kick off Side B, and I'm going to start with a song that musically is a summer pop punk jam. And it kind of was, because the single was released in late August, but the full album dropped in early November. So my only criticism of this song is the fact that this group waited till late August, because this song is, for lack of a better word, a breezy and poppy pop punk tune that I think would have benefited being released in May or June to give the people the chance to rock this all summer long. And I'm going with State Champs' Silver Clouds from their 2024 self-titled album.
Nice.
I can promise you this song will be on many 2025 summer playlists without a shadow of a doubt. The lyrics are a little dark, but it's yin and yang against this pop punk anthem that really harkens back to the early 2000s pop punk sound. There was a resurgence of pop punk in 2024, and I feel like what is old is new again. The cycle has been completed, because State Champs, when I listened to this song could have been released in 2002 and it could have been a banger, and it was released in 2024 and it is a banger. So Silver Clouds.
I love the pick, man. This band takes me back to my Warped Tour days for sure. They're very much in line with bands like Sum 41 and like bands I grew up listening to in Arizona, like Four Banger, where very like nasally, high pitched vocals and like very sort of like FU middle fingers, despite the fact that they're all jumping around in unison and playing guitars and crap. I love the pick, man. I love pop punk. I always have. I love the resurgence that we're seeing of it in 2024. It just tickles me and warms my heart. They're a fun band, man. They kick ass, and I love the pick. And more pop punk coming back, please. Like we saw a resurgence of like Blink-182 this year too. Like it's coming back in a big way, in a whole new wave, and it excites me. I like it a lot because that's what I grew up with. I'm a kid of the 80s and 90s, but I spent the majority of my teen years in the 2000s. So like this is like home to me. So I love the pick. It's awesome.
So then I guess my question is, are we staying in this pop punk realm for track 2?
So like I'm gonna like kind of keep it kind of poppy, I guess, sort of, maybe punky. Let's say punk at least, because the pick that I have next is it's a track called "Say What" or "Whatever You Say, Man," and it's by a band called Spiritual Cramp, based out of San Francisco, and it's featuring White Reaper, who you and I both love. We both love White Reaper. So these two bands, for whatever reason, they got together and they decided to do like a dual single release in 2024, where one song is Spiritual Cramp featuring White Reaper, and the other one on the flip side is White Reaper featuring Spiritual Cramp. So Spiritual Cramp has quickly become one of my favorite bands in the last few years, and I always described it as being like if Mark Mothersbaugh created a hipster punk band again. This song in particular was "Say Whatever You Say, Man." Just it makes you want to throw on a leather jacket and like walk through the roughest neighborhood in your city. Like it's just one of those like I'm a bad mofo type songs with just a steady beat and guitars and this delightful, wonderful pretentiousness to it. And both the tracks are killer. And I love the fact that these two bands that I really love got together and became friends and did this double-sided single together. And I was actually able to see Spiritual Cramp open for the Hives in Santa Ana, California back in August. And man, their records are fantastic, but their live show is just something else. Like straight out of like the 90s like punk scene. It was just so much fun to see them play. And of course, White Reaper is like legendary status for you and me. Like we both love that band. So these two really creative, really unique, really high energy bands getting together and just putting out these two kick-ass tracks. Honestly, I could switch one for the other on this list, but I went with Whatever You Say, Man, just because it's just got that badass, like take no nonsense beat to it. And the chemistry and the alchemy of these two bands coming together just works in a way that surprised me, despite the fact that I love both these bands. So yeah, Spiritual Cramp featuring White Reaper. It's a single release called Whatever You Say, Man.
Spoiler alert, I didn't waste any time last year on episode 50 making sure that White Reaper got into the 2023 playlist, but I won't say what song. Go back and listen to episode 50 if you want to check out some awesome 2023 stuff and judge us on how those 2023 songs held up in 2024. But alas, I'm so glad to see a year later, we're still talking about what I consider still underrated. White Reaper, as much as you and I love them, and I know a lot of people do, I know our friends at The Itch love them, I know a lot of different podcasters are all over them, but I feel like they're still under the radar a little bit. And I feel like next year with the Warped Tour returning, I just have a feeling if they happen to be on that bill, they're going to explode like no other band. There's something about them. And Spiritual Cramp doing this release with them, I feel like it served both bands well, because like this unique way of releasing albums and releasing singles like you and I have been talking about throughout tonight, each camp introduced their music to the other band's fan base. And I think it benefited both bands in the process, because I was familiar with Spiritual Cramp before this song, but this song made me go back and dive into their music more. And I'm so glad I did. And I have to thank White Reaper for that. And I'm hoping the same happened for Spiritual Cramp fans that now became White Reaper fans.
Yeah. It's almost like that hip hop style of collaboration where both artists or whatever artists feature on a track and a hip hop track both get that sort of boost. And I love that communal feel of collaborating on music and releasing it together. It's awesome.
And something tells me because of the success of tracks like this, we might see more of that in 2025.
Yeah.
But moving on from this, well, I mentioned Warped Tour, so I'm going to go with a band that when I think of Warped Tour, their name comes to mind. And this year, the band released their quote-unquote, like, Dr. Evil, Magma. I'm going to go with final album, Heaven and Hell. And I use quote marks around final because, quite frankly, I don't believe the word final tour. I don't believe final album. I just don't believe it anymore.
Kiss has made me skeptical. I've seen so many final Kiss farewell tours at this point.
I swear at this point, I feel like when bands say it's their final album, it's a life encore. They like walk off stage and they're like, that's it, we're retiring. And everybody in the world yells for years, like, no, come back. And then they all come back out on stage like, we're just kidding. Anyway, Sum 41.
Yeah. Oh, man. Again, with the pop punk resurgence. Like, hell yeah, dude.
It's still happening. I mean, look, Landmines was released at the end of 2023. Like, so far at the end of 2023, it was released after you and I recorded the 2023 episode. So it immediately went to, remember I said on side A, the first song on my 2024 playlist was Landmines, leading into, I know it makes no sense, but that's what I do musically, Teddy Swim's Goodbye's Been Good to You. This song reached number 2 on the US Rock Airplay chart and topped both the US Alternative Airplay chart and the Canada Rock chart. The last time Sum 41 topped the Alternative Airplay chart was Fat Lip in 2001. 22 years, 5 months, and 3 weeks in between number ones on that chart. The longest gap in that chart's 35-year history, topping the Killers, who waited between When You Were Young in October of 2006 and Caution in April of 2020. Landmines also reached number 30 on New Zealand's Hot Singles chart and number 48 on France's Airplay chart. This is quintessential Sum 41 punk rock. It's got that infectious sing-along chorus, gives you all those warm and fuzzy, nostalgic early 2000 pop-punk vibes, and it's only one piece of this album's puzzle, as Heaven and Hell bridges the gap between the band's pop-punk side and their heavier side that they've always incorporated in their sounds. Tracks like Rise Up show that these guys could play metal if they want to play metal, but this album kind of bridges the gap between the two, and Landmines sounds like Derek is looking back with a little bit of understanding and a little bit of hindsight in this song. And to me, as somebody who has spent 2024 looking back on a lot with hindsight, this song just hits with me. Even though it's pop punk, it still hits me in the feels. So Landmines.
Yeah, Sum 41 has a storied history. They especially the lead singer, he went through some hard times for quite a while there. And this isn't just like a resurgence of the band and the genre. This is also like a triumphant return for the band themselves, like as individuals. And this album's got that spirit to it. And again, like I said, like I grew up sneaking into Warped Tour and meeting all the bands. Never met Sum 41, met a bunch of other bands, but they were always like the fun bands that I really followed and really like looked up to. And I had some friends back in the day in a band called Authority Zero in Arizona, and they toured with Sum 41 extensively. And they had nothing but nice things to say about all those guys. And they had some absolutely epic prank wars too when they were on tour together. So Sum 41's always been a band that's been near and dear to my heart. And I love the fact that they're like the forerunners, along with like Blink-182, is this resurgence of pop punk in 2024. I love the song, and I love the way you said that they've been sort of mixing up genres, and they've been really sort of stretching their musical muscles too, and playing a bunch of different styles, and not necessarily like keeping themselves to just that sort of pop punk feel. They're wildly talented musicians. I think a lot of people kind of box them into the pop punk sort of genre back in the day, and I don't know if they even necessarily wanted it to be that. I know they were having a lot of fun doing it back in the day, but they're wildly talented. And the fact that they're able to come back and have this triumphant return and kind of shock some people at the same time, I really, really enjoy. So awesome pick. Thinking on it now, I don't think you could have a best of 2024 list without Sum 41's return on here. It's wonderful.
And hopefully in 2025, we say, see, I told you so. They already have their reunion album out.
I would love to see them if they want to stick around long enough to show up on Warped Tour, because I'm thinking about going to the Long Beach, California location.
Nice.
And I'd love to see them there with a number of other bands I loved back in the day that I saw in Warped Tour many, many times, many years in a row. So that'd be cool if they showed up. But, like you said, they're always kind of shaky about whether or not they're going to do something else or they're going to stay broken up. And I understand their reasons why. But like I said, like I've been a lifelong Kiss fan, and I've been to so many final Kiss reunion tours and like farewell tours and musicians get that itch. They miss the performing, they miss the writing, they miss their friends that they used to spend every waking minute with on the road. And I get why a lot of these bands will come back, even if it's for a short run, just to come back and have fun and do it for a little while. And then if they're able to, and they have the luxury of doing so, take another break and chill, and then come back with something weird and cool and obscure a few years down the road. It's great.
All right. Well, we are moving on to track 4. What do you got next?
So I'm going to go with another sort of hybrid band, which I think kind of sort of ties in with the whole Sum 41 vibe in a very weird, loose way. Once I say the band and the track, it's not going to make any sense, but it made sense to me in my head just now. The track I've chosen is The Stargate by Blood Incantation off their 2024 album, Absolute Elsewhere. And I bring them up immediately after Sum 41 because this is a band that's a death metal band, but they're equal parts death metal and prog rock.
Yes!
Which should not make sense on paper, but they're such wildly talented musicians. And when you tie in the death metal sort of aesthetic and what they're all about, and with like the weird sort of stonerness of prog rock, it makes sense. So they're a weird band, but they're awesome. And they have these songs throughout this entire album, Absolute Elsewhere. Well, they'll go from the drop D tuning, the heavy growling, the double bass pedals, and they'll go into these wild stretches of prog rock, which are like not dissimilar from like King Crimson, for example. And they just do this back and forth, and it's almost seamless to where you stop realizing that you've stopped listening to a death metal song halfway through, and now you're listening to a prog rock song, and all of a sudden it just shifts right back into death metal. It's wild, and it's really cool. And what's also awesome is the fact that they're from Colorado, so they're from my neck of the woods, which is cool. And they are like, this album is quietly on a ton of best albums of 2024 lists across the country, across the internet even. And they're just this sort of under the radar band that not a lot of people know about unless they're big fans of the genre. And it's cool that they're just very quietly sort of leading the charge of death metal in America. And I've got this friend who is a huge, massive death metal and metal fan in general. She knows more about the genre and the musicians than I'll ever know. And she refers to them as pretty good for an American death metal band, which doesn't sound like the highest praise ever, but it actually is. So go and listen to the album, but in particular, listen to The Stargate, which I think is a very good sort of summary of what they're doing with the album and what they do as musicians in general. You get a really healthy mix of their death metal side, but also the prog rock that they kind of bend into and out of as they're sort of weaving these long 8-minute long tapestries of songs. So yeah, Blood Incantations, The Stargate, off of the album Absolute Elsewhere.
Which is named after a prog rock band, Absolute Elsewhere. So there's your little prog stuff. I'm sure Sean Faust, we have his ears propped up as he's listening to this episode right now. I mean, yes, this is death metal. Make no mistake, it is heavy as frickin' hell. But it's also proggy and trippy, and dare I use the word jammy. This song takes death metal and fuses it with this progressive jam band trippiness. I mean, at 8 minutes and 20 seconds long, I'm pretty much going to assume this is going to be our longest song of the evening. But I think it's unique and refreshing if either one of those genres are your go-to. And with that, I will say that one thing's for certain, my weekly mixtape will be the only Songs of 2024 playlist that will include a spectrum of JPEG Mafia to Sabrina Carpenter to Teddy Swims to Blood Incantation. But while I don't have anything that leans towards the prog side of the spectrum, I do have a song that'll work on the heavy side of the spectrum in my list. It's not death metal, it's more grind metal, but I feel like it's the heaviest thing I've got to come out of that. And I'm going to go there for, similar to the Joey Valance and Bray story, something a little personal with this song. And I'm going to go with Lamb of God featuring Mastodon's single, Floods of Triton.
Yes. I love it.
This was released on the heels of the group's co-headlining Ashes of Leviathan Arena Tour, which celebrated their respective albums, Ashes of the Wake and Leviathan. I had to miss this tour this summer because at the time that the tour was rolling through the area, I was in a hospital recovering from open heart surgery. I've talked about this on a couple episodes of my weekly mixtape over the fall, and I've mentioned it on social media, but I know people pick and choose what episodes of the show they listen to based on the styles of music they like. And I know a lot of people will listen to this one because it kind of covers all styles of music. So long story short, I was home recovering from this life-changing major event in my life. And my wife's cousin Sue, who I will forever be grateful for, had Mark Morton of Lamb of God create a cameo and send it to me.
No way.
As I was recovering from open heart surgery.
While he was on tour?
While he was on this tour.
That's cool.
He did it from up in Maine. And if it's okay, I'm going to just share a short clip from, I'm not going to share the whole thing because some of it involves personal stuff that I'd rather not air. But this one section right here, I listened to so many times during my heart surgery recovery, and I just want to play it because it just means so much to me.
So what I would leave you with, Brian, is that I think you probably know this already, but I will remind you that music heals. It really does. It's like a spiritual thing. And I think you're probably very in tune with that because of just how big a part music plays in your life. So don't forget that music is healing and lean into that because you need some healing right now. And I'm glad you're on the mend. Godspeed. You did the right thing so you can be present for your daughters and for your family and for your wife and for your wife's cousin, Sue. So Godspeed to you, and lean into the music, man, and get well soon, get better soon. I think you are better. Just get back to doing your thing as quick as possible.
I mean, that is everything I love about music, and it's coming from Mark Morton of Lamb of God. So, Mark, thank you so much for that cameo. Sue, thank you so much for sending that to me. You have no idea how much that brightened my summer as I was recovering from this. And I should also take this moment to thank my family and other podcasters like you, DT, and Jason from It's Not That Bad, and The Itch, and Sean Faust, all the friends that rallied around me, Gomez at Sleevey G, who helped keep the show afloat while I was in the hospital. My daughters were actually sitting next to me with a laptop asking me how to get episodes uploaded and published and getting social media posts out and asking me to say what I wanted to say so they could write stuff. Like, this show would have went on an immediate hiatus had it not been for all of you guys helping me this year. So I know this is kind of heartfelt in a Lamb of God segment, but thank you. I mean,
Lamb of God is for the children. They're wonderful, man. They're metal, but they're accessible. They're great. And that's one of the coolest things I've ever heard. Not just the clip, but just, the story of how your family really kind of came together and rallied around you. And yeah, I mean, I've been a part of I've moved on to YouTube. I'm not necessarily a podcaster anymore, but you and I became really good friends as a result of both being podcasters.
Yes.
And it was my absolute honor to help in any way I could while you were in that situation. And I hope that I helped in some small way. I don't know. Obviously, I wasn't there in the I was going to say hotel room, the hospital room. Yeah, I obviously wasn't there on your side of the country in the hospital room to help and whatnot. But I personally am very thankful for your family and your kids that they sort of jumped up and answered the call and helped maintain the show, because you mean a lot to me and you mean a lot to a lot of people. And I think this show means a lot to a lot of people too. And the fact that this community rallied around this show, which means so much to a lot of people, myself included, is just a beautiful thing. And it happened under not the greatest of circumstances, but it's sometimes those circumstances that show us how much we mean to the people around us. And it's just a really sweet story. So thank you to your kids. Thank you to your wife. Thank you to your wife's cousin for that incredible clip. I can't believe he sat down and recorded that while he was on tour too. That is just one of the coolest things I've ever heard. So
man. That'll never leave my phone. I mean,
no.
And to be honest, I will say I look back at this year with a lot of gratefulness. And it's a tough word to use when you say you had open heart surgery, but many doctors told me, had I not, I would not have made it through the summer. So It was a preventative surgery, but at the end of the day, I am here talking to you right now and able to continue this show based on the love and help that everyone provided. Honestly, I could have very easily just said taking 2 months off of the show because of what's happening, and everybody would have understood. I know that everybody would have understood. But as I'm laying in the hospital, my oldest said to me, "What are you going to do? You're just sitting here, you're laying here. That's where your mind is going. Let me just sit here and do it for you. You just talk to me." And you've got all these. I had recorded a bunch of episodes because I had planned to take the summer off to spend more time with the family, not to have open heart surgery. So like the stars aligned in a very weird way. And there were some people that still don't even know I had it. So somehow I've been able to go. This is episode 98 straight weeks without missing an episode. So, I mean, if there's anything there's nobody that'll question my dedication to this show, I guess. Right?
Hell no.
But anyway, enough about me. Let's get back to the songs of 2024. I mean, following up Blood Incantation and Lamb of God, where do we go from here?
All right. Well, I mean, the last track was Floods of Triton. And I mean, speaking of floods washing away everything in waves of destruction, don't ever piss off Kendrick Lamar. Holy crap. Not Like Us may go down is not only the top hip hop single of 2024, it also may just go down as one of the most iconic tracks of 2024, period. Regardless of your take of what went on between Drake and Kendrick Lamar, this track is absolute hip hop genius in its design and its execution. And this is just one of the quietly meanest mofos in hip hop. at his most diabolical. This is just a killer track. It's one of the most iconic disc tracks of all time, depending on your take on disc tracks. But it's also just like peak rap and hip hop from one of its most like modern and legendary individuals working today. It's a longer track and it's just relentless, and it's just diabolical and mean jabs at Drake, which I'm not going to say if I agree or not. I've got my take on what happened between the two of them, as most people do, because it was very, very public and it's become very sort of iconic even in the realm of pop culture for the year of 2024. But it's also just a really, really freaking good and well-engineered and well-produced hip-hop track. Like Kendrick Lamar being pissed off at somebody and coming at him with one of the best songs, one of the best hip-hop songs of this year and maybe the last decade. Like, there's just no coming back from that. Like, Drake, I just go home, go to bed, call it a night, relax, wake up the next day and see what you can do. But yeah, no, Not Like Us had to be on this. It was just an iconic move, an iconic track from an iconic rapper, and just one of the most like out of left field and wild happenings in pop culture this year at the same time.
Reached number 1 on the U.S. Billboard Hot 100, U.S. Hot R&B and Hip Hop Songs, U.S. Pop Airplay, and U.S. Rhythmic charts. It also topped the Billboard Global 200, the Australia Hip Hop R&B charts, and the UK Hip Hop R&B charts, as well as topping charts in several other countries. Worldwide smash. Here in the U.S., it spent 21 weeks atop the Hot Rap Songs chart, which broke the record by Lil Nas X's Old Town Road featuring Billy Ray Cyrus. And you know how long that song was on the radio because everybody got sick of it by the time that Old Town Road ended its run. People did not get sick of Not Like Us this year. And to me, this song instantly reached the Mount Rushmore of top hip-hop diss tracks, including Cannabis's Second Round Knockout, Ice Cube's No Vaseline, Ether by Nas, and Tupac with the Outlaws Hit 'Em Up. I mean, Not Like Us has to be included at this point. It was that brutal of a takedown.
And then the video just did it all over again. Like, it was so rough. Like, can you imagine starting up some beef with Kendrick, and he comes back like a week later and he writes this track that sets the entire world on fire and gets the entire world on his side. Can you imagine pissing this guy off and he comes back and he's got the entire planet coming after you? Like, my God, insane, just insane. But again, an incredible rap track too. Like, he just was not messing around.
No, if Kendrick Lamar ever cut me off, I wouldn't even honk at him. I would just say thank you.
I would ask him if he would like to take my car. Just, do you want my car?
Just don't write any songs about my weekly mixtape. Right. I don't think I can handle the heat, man.
No.
My heart's not strong enough for that, I don't think. But following that up, I think the only logical place to go is when one of the greatest comes out with a new album. And we got to talk about the death of Slim Shady, Coup de Grace, Eminem, and I am going to go with Houdini. It reached number 2 on the U.S. Billboard Hot 100, but it topped the Billboard Global 200, the Canada Hot 100, the Australia ARIA charts, the UK Singles chart, as well as a dozen other countries. For some reason, was not a number 1 hit here in the U.S., probably because of Not Like Us, but it did win Best Hip Hop Video and Best Visual Effects at the 2024 MTV Video Music Awards. I didn't even know MTV still played music videos, but that goes here and there.
They have a YouTube channel? Did they play them there? I don't know.
The song interpolates prior hits from Eminem, Without Me, My Name Is, and Just Lose It, along with Steve Miller Band's massive 1982 hit Abracadabra, which Steve Miller himself praised, saying that Eminem is, and I got to read this quote here, one of those timeless originators building something new on a long legacy of original artists, which is huge praise, especially that he sampled and interpolated Steve Miller's song. Some artists might get offended by it. I think this was nothing but love here. This song takes shots at everything and everyone, including DT, both you and I as listeners. I mean, Eminem goes after his own kids in this song. Some people praised it, And some people loathed it. But the thing is, Eminem is 52 years old as of 2024, and he still manages to stir the pot lyrically and musically, and he gets conversation started as if he's finished or washed or whatever you want to call it. This whole time that people are arguing, these songs are rocketing up the charts. And there aren't many artists that are able to create such a longevity on the charts while always bringing controversy along with the ride. And one that I want to compare it to, and yes, people might go, what? But Madonna. Because Madonna was always bringing controversy along with her hits. Think back to Like a Virgin. Then fast forward to Like a Prayer. Then fast forward to Justify My Love and the erotica video. She knew how to bring controversy with her songs to always bring her to the front of the news and the front of the charts. And Eminem has done that in the world of hip hop. 52 years old, dropping a song like this, whether you love it or not, the charts speak for itself.
Yeah, it's Eminem, man. Anytime the man speaks, the world listens. Like, he's an icon. He's one of the greatest rappers to have ever rapped. He's the one of the greatest in the game, and he probably always will be. That man's going to be 65, 70 and still dropping like fire tracks, like, and still bringing controversy and finding ways to like freak out the kids and the old people. Like, it's incredible. It's really funny to me. Well, first of all, I love that pick. Like I said, it's Eminem. It's iconic. He drops something new in 2024. It automatically belongs in the top 2024 songs. Like, it just does automatically. But it's funny that you picked Houdini off that album, because I had something in my bank and now I'm just going to drop it.
Oh, please. I think I know what this is. I'm not going to say anything.
Probably. It's Dua Lipa.
Yes.
It's Dua Lipa. It's Houdini off of Radical Optimism, because first of all, it's got the same track name as the Eminem song, but the song is also an interpolation of another 80s hit, which is such a weird coincidence. Like you said, like Eminem, he interpolated Abracadabra by Steve Miller Band, and this track, Houdini by Dua Lipa off of her 2024 release Radical Optimism, is an interpolation of the synth track from Talk Talk's It's My Life.
Yes.
Which is, it's genius the way it's implemented. But Dua I think she was probably on my 2023 list too last year.
Was.
Spoiler alert.
I won't say what song though. Let people go back to episode 50 and find out for themselves.
Yeah, but she just continues to dominate pop music and dance halls and my playlists. Like, she's just Houdini is just this killer dance track and just a single off of a killer dance album. And like I said, it's got that clever sampling of the synth from Talk Talk's It's My Life, which is an iconic song in its own right. And like you said, when you were discussing Eminem's Houdini, people take issue with pop artists or hip hop artists interpolating or sampling classic songs like this. And I don't know why, because they've been doing it since the beginning of time. And Dua Lipa's taken her lumps for doing so, and she's really learned from it. And so have her co-writers and her producers. And we need to stop picking on her in particular for this for some reason. I don't know why people insist on jumping on her for doing this, because it is a super smart and super clever use of Talk Talk's It's My Life. And it's just a great bop. It's a great song. And if you're gonna like crank out dance anthems, like what better genre or decade to pull from to craft these songs in the 80s? Like, it's just a great track. It's a wonderful, sweet, endearing, confident, snarky, just bitchy album at times, and I fucking love it. Excuse my language. I went through this entire episode until saying the F word, so I'm proud of myself. But yeah, my pick is Houdini from Dua Lipa off of Radical Optimism, and I am so happy you picked that Eminem track. Not only because it's a great track, but because it allowed me to do that.
Well, do you want a funny story? On my 2024 playlist, Houdini and Houdini were back to back.
Really?
It was Eminem followed by Dua Lipa. And this might be a total dad joke and people might unsubscribe as I say it, but I feel like the two of them should have put the songs together and did an Abracadabra remix of the two songs. But
I love it.
It reached number 11 on the US Billboard Hot 100, number 5 on the Canada Hot 100, number 3 on the Global 200, number 7 on the Australia ARIA charts, number 2 on the UK singles chart, and was a top 10 hit in Ireland, Germany, Switzerland, and France, among others. And like Teddy Swim's Goodbye's Been Good to You, the single was released late in 2023 after you and I recorded the Songs of 2023 episode, but it really took hold in 2024. and it became one of the summer jams of 2024. I feel like the song almost had a resurgence when the warmer weather hit. I'll just say it. It's my favorite Dua Lipa song ever. I love this song so much. I'm so glad you picked it because I didn't quite know where I was going to close with. And I was hoping that this song got talked about, and you chose her last year. So thank you for granting that.
Anytime, man.
And to close it up, at least in terms to the songs I'm picking for this evening, because this is my last song choice, I'm going to go with another pop song, but it's not the pop song you're thinking. It's not a pop like Dua Lipa. It doesn't have pop elements like Eminem. And it's definitely going to be a brake screeching halt coming out of these two dancier tracks. But when I've waited since 1993's The River of Dreams to get a brand new Billy Joel pop song, and you get it with Turn the Lights Back On, there is no way it's not going to be my last pick of the evening. Absolutely. Is the song a romantic ballad? Is it a metaphor for how long Billy Joel fans have been waiting to get new music from him? That's up to you to decide. For me, it could be either or. The song reached number 62 on the Billboard US Hot 100, the first time he'd made that chart since his cover of To Make You Feel My Love back in 1997. It also hit number 4 on the UK singles chart and number 7 on the Japan Hot Overseas chart and hit number 1 in Israel. Considering Billy Joel's age and the fact that the US Billboard Hot 100 is predominantly dominated by newer artists, I'm not entirely shocked that this wasn't a top 40 hit, but I also kind of am because this song is ridiculously powerful. And as someone who has been a Billy Joel fan for my entire life, anyone who listened to episode 15, the Ultimate Billy Joel playlist with longtime Billy Joel band member Liberty DeVito, knows my fandom. There was no way, like last year, closing the way you and I brought the Beatles and the Rolling Stones into the mix.
Yeah.
I honestly thought this song would have had a bigger chart impact, but regardless of where it sat in the charts, I think Billy Joel fans were more than happy enough to make up for it with the love it brought them. For him to finally, quote unquote, turn the lights back on with some new music. I hope it's not the last ever Billy Joel pop song, but if it is, it's very, very powerful.
Yeah. I love the track, and I love Billy Joel. I always have too. And the whole, I'm late, but I'm here right now is just so fitting. Like you said, is it a love ballad about, not showing up when you need to, but eventually showing up and being the man that somebody needs you to be? Or is it about making his fan base wait for so long for new music? It could be both. And it probably is both. And I mean, this wasn't like a bombastic release, like, the resurgence of the Rolling Stones with their new album and their tour where they wanted to be the center of attention. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm missing the mark, but the release of this track and his new music felt more personal. It felt like it was more for the fans than him trying to topple the world all over again and go on tour and play arenas and stuff like that, which I think is really sweet and nice. But it's a wonderful track. I really love it. It's beautiful. That man's voice is timeless. Like you said, he's getting up there in age and he still sounds wonderful. And he can still hit those notes. And there's just a timeless quality about both him and his music. And he's never been somebody who's been like, oh, he sounds like he's from the 80s or he sounds like he's from the 70s. He just sounds like he's from every time. There's just a wild timelessness and universal appeal of his music where it's just Billy Joel. You know what I mean? It's not like 90s Billy Joel. There's no 70s Billy Joel. It's just Billy Joel. And that's something I've always loved and appreciated about all of his music. So, and I love that you kind of brought it full circle from last year where we kind of closed out with the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, and now it's Billy Joel. And it's wonderful to see these older artists that I loved as a kid, that my parents loved when they were kids, come back, not miss a beat, still crank out incredible, moving, beautiful music like no time has passed. It's great.
Well, we have had a roller coaster of a 2024 playlist, DT, and you get to take us home with the final song of the night. Everything from Chapel Roan to Blood Incantation and back again. How do we close out the ultimate 2024 playlist? I mean, at this point, you could choose any artist, any genre, smooth jazz. I don't care what it is. I have a feeling it's going to work.
We're all just going to take a moment to reflect. Yeah, that's going to be, no. I'm going to go weird again, and I don't have any way of really tying into Billy Joel.
Yeah, that was a tough one. I'm sorry about that.
No, not at all. Just aside from the fact that I feel like this next artist is going to be one of those people that's going to be timeless because he has such a knack for reinventing himself and his style over the years. And every time he does it, it just feels natural and awesome and just great. And it's Childish Gambino, Donald Glover, because he had an incredible 2024.
Nice.
It's Lithonia off of Bando Stone in the New World. And like I said, this man has just reinvented himself and his career so many times over. Like he went from being like an internet video sketch comedy actor to a sitcom actor to a stand-up comedian to a rapper to an alternative and experimental rapper to an R&B singer. And now with this track Lithonia, he's dabbling in rock and roll. And it's like, I never knew I needed like an alternative hard rock Childish Gambino song until I heard it. And it's like, why hasn't he done a whole album of this? It's incredible. And on top of this, the music that he wrote, this song included, which was the single off the album, is also doubling as the score for a film he directed this year. Like the man just does it all. It's insane. But Lithonia is this really cool heavy rock song coming from a well-known and established rapper and R&B artist. And it's pretty dark and affecting, but Glover himself says that it's actually positive and insists that it's uplifting. But when you listen to the song, it's very sort of melancholy, but it's also got a hopefulness to it, which I really like. But the man is just exercising his range with all these different vocal styles in this track by itself, along with some heavy guitar and synth, and it just kicks ass. And like I said, I would take an entire album of just Childish Gambino doing alternative rock because it just somehow makes sense. He's become a massive icon, and I don't think you can do a 2024 list of best songs or iconic songs without including him in some fashion. And honestly, what better way to end a 2024 playlist with something that's on the surface appears deeply pessimistic, but is actually really hopeful and has a whole lot of really optimistic undertones and messages for the future. That sounded really pretentious, but I'm sticking with it.
No, not at all, man. I'm going to challenge one thing, though. You said that it's weird coming out of Billy Joel, and I actually think I found a connection here because Lithonia reached number 69 on the Billboard US Hot 100, number 85 on the Canada Hot 100, number 88 on the UK Singles Chart, and number 14 on the New Zealand Hot Singles Chart.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's got a rock-leaning vibe to it. So you could conceivably say it's a quote-unquote rock song, but that's not where I'm going coming out of Billy Joel. But I'm going to come from a standpoint that we closed out a 2024 playlist with two underrated tracks that probably should have gotten more love on the charts than they did. Instead of closing with the songs that did blow up the tracks, like the Kendrick and the Chappell Roan, we went with some underrated songs that maybe people missed this year and kind of gives people something to reflect on and marinate on when they listen to this playlist all the way through. So I'll be very curious to see where the mixtapers stand with these song choices tonight.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I'm looking forward to the discussion. That's aside from being on these episodes and just hanging out with you and talking music, one of my favorite things is seeing the discussion that comes about from these episodes which is super cool. The community you have built around this podcast is phenomenal. It's wonderful, dude.
I am so grateful for each and every person that chooses to be a part of it because I just love talking music, and I love the fact that there's other people out there like me that just want to talk about music and celebrate the songs that we love.
And that's the thing. It comes through in every episode you do. And that's why people gravitate towards you, including all the big stars you've had on this show. Like, holy crap, man. Like, I still feel like small potatoes compared to some of the people that have been on the show just this year. It's been insane. But you have this genuineness about you that comes through in every episode you do, and this genuine love for music and wanting to share music and appreciate music. And it draws people in. And I'm one of those people, obviously. It's an honor to be here and to do another one of these last of, the year sort of recap episodes and talk about the best music of the year. And it's just my genuine honor to just hang out with you for an hour and change and just talk BS and talk about music.
Oh, dude, the feeling's absolutely mutual. Thank you so much for those kind words. You got me all like choked up here, especially given the year I've had here. But before we get to that, let me clear my throat here. And someone who's ever chopping onions, get the hell out of the room, because that Mixtapers concludes side B of the Ultimate 2024 Mixtape, which consists of State Champs, Silver Clouds, Spiritual Cramp featuring White Reaper, whatever you say, man, Sum 41's Landmines, Blood Incantations, The Stargate Tablet 1, Lamb of God featuring Mastodon's Floods of Triton, Kendrick Lamar's Not Like Us, Eminem's Houdini, Dua Lipa's Houdini, Billy Joel's Turn the Lights Back On, and Childish Gambino's Lithonia. Head over to myweeklymixtape.com to hear all the songs we've discussed in this mix through the playlist embedded on the episode page.
Screwball peanut butter whiskey? Why the hell not? A little salty, a little sweet, a little savory, and always smooth. Screwball, the original peanut butter whiskey that's unexpectedly delicious. Visit screwballwhiskey.com to learn more. That's Screwball with a K. Enjoy responsibly. Copyright 2023 Screwball Spirits, LLC, New York, New York.
With Uber Reserve, good things come to those who plan ahead. Family vacay? Reserve your ride as soon as you book your flights. To all the planners, now you can reserve your Uber ride up to 90 days in advance. See Uber app for details.
I'm James McComb, reporting live from home in my bathrobe and slippers. Tonight, we're talking Dunkin' Polar Peppermint Coffee. Gene's here with the latest. Gene, do you copy?
The home with Dunkin' is where you want to be.
Now, DT, we've talked about all of our top songs for 2024, but there's one question that remains. What's your 2024 album of the year and why?
Oh, geez. Oh, can I have more than one? Because I feel like the reason I picked all these tracks are because they're all off of my favorite albums of the year. To pick just one? I mean, I want to say Jack White's No Name, just because of the weird and strange circumstances with which he released it, and the fact that he's one of my favorite musicians of all time. And he kind of, like I said, did this really weird but beautiful and awesome and kick-ass return to form. But I also love the fact that Vows from Hot Water Music is their 10th album. It's their 30th anniversary as a band. And you can tell that all the songs on that album were so incredibly meaningful to them. And also JPEG Mafia putting out I Lay Down My Life, because it's so fucking weird and wonderful. And the man just does not stop. But oh man, I'm just gonna rip the Band-Aid off and say that it's probably Jack White's No Name, just because it was such a wonderful surprise in kind of a period of the year where I needed kind of a nice surprise. I obviously did go through a heart surgery or anything quite as crazy or harrowing. But it's 2024, I think, for a lot of people, it's been a weird year. And Jack White just being like, here's my gift to the world. I just got in my garage and hang out with a bunch of friends and wrote some stupid music that turned out really, really great, and you can all have it for free, was just such a really cool punk rock Jack White thing to do. So I'm going to give it to that just for those reasons.
All right. And I'm going to agree with you on Hot Water Music's Vows. It's definitely in my top 2 of the year, but believe it or not, my number 1 album of the year has not been talked about tonight.
Oh.
Quite frankly, because I couldn't find a fucking place to include a Fish song in this weird mix. Pardon my language. I
love it when you say the F word, man.
I actually was thinking about coming out of Blood Incantations, The Stargate, with Fish's Oblivion from their 2024 album Evolve, but that is a funk dance Fish jam band tune, but I was thinking of the jam band connection. But as soon as I thought about the Stargate Tablet 1, I immediately heard Floods of Triton following it up. So I never found the place to include Fish, but as an album, Fish made such a statement with Evolve. It's my favorite album from there since Farmhouse. And I know I just pissed off a lot of Fish fans because Farmhouse isn't always their favorite album.
Oh, they're always looking for reasons to be pissed anyway.
I know, but it's the album that my wife and I bonded over when we first met. So to me, it always holds a special place in my heart. And this year, with everything I was going through, we listened to this album a lot and we bonded over this album. So yes, it didn't make my top 20 songs, but that's not for a lack of love. Fish's Evolve gets my album of the year.
Along that same vein, I'm going to throw out Chromacopia by Tyler, the Creator. That was one that I considered, but the album is such an experience in and of itself that it was hard to pick out one track to isolate and talk about, because that's not an album I'm ever going to be able to like pick songs out of and just put them in a playlist. It's going to be a playlist unto itself. It's such a personal album for him and such an introspective album, and he's telling such a story with it that it almost becomes sort of a concept album. And obviously the way he's been marketing it is the same way too, but to try and pick out one singular song out of that album was just impossible. But Chromocopia by Tyler, the Creator, is easily one of the best albums of the year too.
Well, 2024 obviously has been an amazing year in music, and it's also been an amazing year over at Space Castle. Why don't you remind everybody what's been going on over by you and where they can find your YouTube show? Obviously on YouTube, I shouldn't.
No worries, man. YouTube.com/@Space Castle Show. Shout out to YouTube for making those URLs as confusing as possible. You can find me pretty easily on most of the social media platforms, or you can just check out spacecastle.net, which has links to all that stuff. So I am doing all kinds of zany nerd essay videos with crazy backstories and side stories where it's me floating through space, exploring all things nerdy in the universe. And I'm also playing video games. I'm also like going back and doing retrospective videos about like my childhood and like growing up and how pop culture kind of shaped my growing up and stuff. So it's a lot of fun. And if anybody wants to come and hang out with me and check out a video, I'd love to have you.
And I want to thank you for the sticker that you have on the Space Castle set of My Weekly Mixtape, dude.
Oh, I stuck that
man.
on the window of the bridge of the Space Castle there. Yeah, no worries, man.
Yeah, this makes My Weekly Mixtape intergalactic in nature. So for that, I thank you, dude.
Oh yeah, I'm spreading the good word throughout the universe. Absolutely.
But more importantly, thank you so much for joining me on our 2024 recap. I'm already looking forward to what we're going to bring to the 2025 discussion 12 months from now.
Yeah, man, me too. I can't wait. Like I said, I look forward to this every year now. Thank you for making me be the annual like recap guy. Like this is a blast.
Well, I also like to thank all of the mixtapers for tuning in. As always, remember, you can find My Weekly Mixtape on almost all the social media haunts at My Weekly Mixtape. You can also head to myweeklymixtape.com to check out the full catalog of My Weekly Mixtape episodes. And if you like what you're hearing on the show, you can help me out by either telling a friend, leaving the show a 5-star review wherever you're tuning in, or becoming a Patreon mixtaper at patreon.com/My Weekly Mixtape. There you can find ad-free episodes of the show, gain early access to upcoming episodes, chime in on future topics, become a guest curator, and so much more. That's all for this week. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, enjoy the tunes.